What's up, everybody? Welcome to the State of Wild, episode 116, a regular YouTube video web series podcast thingy. My name is Meowth, and as usual, I'm joined by two good friends and co-hosts, Roffle and Corbett. Guys, how you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good. Got a full belly, and a bunch of new cards to talk about, so couldn't be happier.
I have half of those things, but you know what? I'm just as excited.
Yeah, we're closing in on part 4 of the 200 and something cards that are coming out with this brand new expansion. So it's been some marathon episodes the past couple weeks. This is going to be kind of the last one, but pretty excited. Lots of cool cards, including Roffle's first card reveal that we'll dive into here as well, which is pretty sweet and exciting. But yeah, let's just go ahead and dive right on in. Let's start with Demon Hunter. We've had all the Death Knight cards revealed. Let's just go ahead and start off with Roffles. I mean, Roffle, do you want to go ahead and read and reveal your cards again to the podcast audience?
I mean, reading is hard, but I'll do my best. So for those of you that didn't see the card reveal, shame on you, first of all. Second of all, I got to reveal the no minion or spell Demon Hunter package, which started with Deal with the Devil, which we've already talked about, but we did see a few new cards for that. Looking at the commons, there's Feldori Warband, which is a 4-mana deal 4 damage, but if your deck has no minions, summon 4 1/1 Illidari with Rush. And so I think all of these kind of need to be evaluated kind of together, because there's an important piece that would be missing if we look at them individually. Next up is Mark of Scorn, which is a 2-mana draw a card. If it's not a minion that you draw, deal 3 damage to the lowest health enemy. So this could foreseeably be in just a very spell or low minion deck. It doesn't necessarily have to be no minions. You could just kind of take the gamble and assume that you're going to hit most of the time, in which case it would be a pretty good card for what it does, but you really do want both effects on both of those cards. To help you get there, though, the big payoff card for Demon Hunter is Soul Eater Scythe, and this has start of game, consume 3 different minions in your deck, leave behind souls that discover them. So a little bit of context here. First of all, it has one of the coolest animations I've ever seen in a card. The start of game is out of this world. But basically, it looks at 3 now different minions. So if you have 2 copies of the same minion, it's only going to consume one of them. But it will consume those minions, turn them into 1-mana Bound Soul spells. And those Bound Soul spells will allow you to discover any of the 3 minions that you consumed with the Scythe. But as soon as you pick one, it'll take it out of the pool, and you won't be able to pick it again. If your opponent steals a Bound Soul for whatever reason, with like a Theo, or even just like makes a copy of it, they won't see anything. They didn't, consume those souls, so it won't be available to them. But essentially what this allows you to do is play some of the no minion spells and also run some minions like maybe a Jace, Artificer Zymox, whatever you want. Lady Setheno if you want some burst damage, or, in my case, double Yogg-Saron. So, yeah, I mean, I've given plenty of thoughts about these cards. How do you guys feel about them?
I think the weapon is super sweet. It is the legendary kind of payoff, but I think the fact that it allows you to run the super powerful minion payoffs that you want to run in something like Jace or Zymox in your no spell deck, I think actually makes no spell decks interesting, especially in the WoW format. Like, being able to run Jace in your no spell deck makes me actually excited for it. And like you said, the animation for this is like super sweet.
Yeah, it's all so clever, like it's such a fun, smart way of designing cards like this. It's just everything from the weapon obviously being the enabler, and just being like very cool by itself. Like the animation, like Ruffles talked about, is very, very slick. But it ties everything together, and like even just the way small things are worded, like Mark of Scorn, draw a card if it's not a minion. So if you draw into the hero, you're not disappointed either. I don't know, it's very, very cool. A lot of people are very hyped about this one, Roffle, so I'm happy that you got these, and perhaps not some of the other Demon Hunter cards.
I mean, I'm actually hyped for the Outcast Demon Hunter, even if nobody else is. But yeah, this is certainly the flashier one, I
Mhm.
think, not just because of the animation, but because of the things that you talked about. It's like, Spell Hunter especially was a really popular archetype, even if it wasn't necessarily like the strongest. It was at times, and it did silly things with like Barnes or Deathwing Dragonlord at various points in Wild. But like it was still like uh, kind of a fan favorite deck for a while, and this is maybe a card that's I don't know how that archetype or how people would like that archetype to be, because like there are often a handful of minions that you do want to run in that type of deck, and Soldier Scythe allows you to get away with doing that. It's a little bit less restrictive, gives you the potential to play around disruption a little bit better, and just overall makes it feel like a better time playing a deck with these cards. And I think it makes I think Feldori Warband is like a pretty big power spike if it's active. And so if you're playing it in a deck with Soldier Scythe, it's likely to be active. Similar concept kind of applies to deal with the devil. I would hope that maybe in the mini set we get one or two more cards that fits into this type of archetype, but just so that you have like right now there isn't that big of a payoff other than these three cards plus the weapon. But like down the line, it would be nice to see more of that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think this is going to be a centerpiece of one of the better standard decks. Like the Relic spell Demon Hunter for standard looks excellent. Sadly, we're running into the Demon Hunter problem in Wild where don't really get a lot of options on top of what's already in that format. Like we have Mana Burn, Immolation Aura, and at
Yeah.
that point it's kind of like, yeah, we've run out of sort of Wild exclusives. There is kind of some cute things with Soul Eater Scythe where uh like I had the thought like you can play it as sort of a toolbox card where like if you pack the minions maybe with like specific tech, they can be just like fetch a tech card for the right matchup. So you might pack it with like a Lothab and then an Albatross, and then you can kind of just like pick out win the game cards. That's kind of a cute idea. But yeah, I also thought about like an aggro spell Demon Hunter. Which might be a little silly, but like things like Feldori Warband are very, very strong and very aggressive. So if you want to take in that direction, there's not probably quite enough cards in Demon Hunter to make it worthwhile. Like there's not enough summon a minion spells. But these payoffs are very strong, from top to bottom. So I think it's a great foundation, even if Demon Hunter is still kind of lacking that overall, the cards that it needs to compete with the other classes in Wild.
Yeah, I wasn't super excited when we just saw Deal with the Devil, but seeing kind of the other three pieces that fit kind of this piece of the puzzle makes it interesting because they're all like way above the curve when it comes to like standard cards, and so it seems like it'll be at least decent. And like you say, just Immolation Aura and just Mana Burn, those are like Mana Burn's like insane when you do like the Jace thing. So like maybe that on its own is good enough.
Yeah, but I'm just prepping you for this is a standard deck, Meowth. I'm just prepping you for those comments.
Those comments will happen regardless of
You're playing a
deck
Demon
you-
Hunter deck. You're playing a standard
Yeah.
deck. Like that's just what we do, right? Same thing
Yeah,
with Death
and
Knight. Just playing standard deck, man.
and
Yeah.
and unfortunately, like Demon Hunter did get kind of like back to back sets of parasitic mechanics with the relics. Hopefully, that's not the case with the spells here. It doesn't seem to be the case with the outcast, but so like the fact that they're revisiting the outcast type thing gives me a little bit of hope that they're not just going to leave some of these as a one and done. I think relics are probably likely to be one and done, but I think that the spell and the outcast is a little bit less likely to be so.
Yeah. All right. So fingers crossed for the spell archetype for Demon Hunter. Demon Hunter did get two other cards though that are kind of just like generally out there. Don't really fit either of the two big archetypes. One of them is Brutal Annihil. It's a 9-drop demon. 9-mana 9/9 demon with Taunt and Rush. Epic. After this minion survives damage, deal that amount to an enemy hero. So it seems like it's going in the big Demon Hunter kind of archetype. The 5-mana spell that copies a demon, the one that cheats out of a demon, like the Sigil. It's kind of just in that archetype. It's kind of like a final piece in that standard rotation. Again, I have not touched Big Demon Hunter for a very long time in Wild. I don't know if Roffle, you have dared venture into the depths that is Big Demon Hunter? Does this really solve any of the issues with the deck?
No. Like if anything, it feels like Big Demon Hunter gets further and further away with each expansion, just because like other decks keep gaining a lead, and like the cards that get introduced for Big Demon Hunter don't really solve the problem that it has, which is just keeping up with the speed of the format right now. Like turn 5 is just way too slow to get online right now. And you inevitably just kind of run into the problem of being a big priest, but worse, and worse in just about every single possible way too. Like everything that Big Demon Hunter does, that deck does better. Especially now with Neptulon, like the one previously, the one saving grace was that you had like Green Rag, and maybe you could just like get them before before they're able to remove your stuff, which or kill you. And this kind of is like a worse version of Green Rag, because it's basically like reflecting damage back at the opponent, which, you know, at most it's going to do like 9 to 12, depending on how much they overkill it.
Well, that's to survive the damage, so it's not even.
Never mind, it's going to deal 8 at most, which is horrendously bad. Like the saving grace is that it does have rush, so it can be a little proactive, but it's just way too slow.
It is funny that the final missing piece of Demon Hunter, of Big Demon Hunter, is just like printing the 20th 9-drop demon, and it's like fixing no other issues for the deck.
No, it's just competing with like at best it's maybe like a lateral upgrade for some of the minions, but the minions aren't the important thing. It's getting well, yeah, it's like it's getting those demons in play. Like if you could do that faster, then it doesn't matter as much what they are. When you already have high quality like assortment of demons that you can pull. It's just they're too slow to come out.
Yeah, I do find it very cute though that like they're printing these like aggressive things. Like once you cheat them out, they do a lot of damage in Demon Hunter. The issue is that you can only pull demons, which means you don't get to pull Neptulon, and Neptulon is better than all of these things at killing people. So it's a really weird thing for Big Demon Hunter, which strays very, very far away. But last but not least, let's talk about I think a very good card for a variety of Demon Hunter archetypes here, and that is Unleash Fel. So 1 mana Fel spell, deal 1 damage to all enemies. Mana Thirst 4, deal 1 damage to all enemies with Lifesteal. It's a 1 mana one-sided whirlwind effect or arcane explosion. Like this card's just good for a whole variety of decks. It's so good.
It goes face. Like it's holy nipple, but like with actual lifesteal and like at 1 mana. Like we've seen this card before. It always costs 2 mana. Like whether it goes face or not, it always costs 2 mana. So this is like undoubtedly a very strong card. I know a lot of people are like, you know, thinking of this in Il'gynoth Lifesteal Demon Hunter. I think that's maybe not where it wants to be, just because like first of all, it relies on your opponent having a hefty board. You're potentially wasting your battle cry plus spell damage, and the deck isn't hurting for damage. Like that's not the problem it has. Again, it's the speed at which it gets online. So I think Felscream Blast still serves that purpose better. I mean, you'd run it in the deck, but like this singular card is not what's going to revive that archetype. Now it is a very strong card, and it has the potential to like be very good in a Fel Demon Hunter deck. I think you just like run it in maybe just any Demon Hunter deck, to be honest with you. Like just play the card. Like even an odd Demon Hunter, like can you imagine this into a Pirate Rogue or something? That's like devastating for them for a variety of reasons, and like Corb said, it goes face, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, busted card. I did try and build the Lifesteal Demon Hunter, and I was just looking around. I'm like, oh, this is the only upgrade the deck has gotten in like a year. So I think it's probably still gonna have the same issues where it's just far too slow. I mean, it's a great removal piece though, because it does mean that you can be so much more like free with your what's the other one called, the blast, the other Felscream Blast, right? And that's like an excellent board clear. Like this solo's aggro with any spell damage, like it's crazy. But I think the deck is still going to be too slow, and it can't really deal with like 12/12s on turn 2, which are somewhat of an issue right now.
Yeah, I guess still kind of like how does Mana Thirst work? Like, if I play this without Lifesteal, and then Jace replays it, will it play the version that I played, or will it like gain Mana Thirst and gain Lifesteal? Like, if I play this on turn 2, and then on turn 8 I play Jace, does it have Lifesteal? I still don't know how Mana Thirst works.
I don't know if how Mana Thirst works in general. I'm going to be completely honest. Do you need to have 4 available mana, or just have
just 4?
I think it's like once you hit 4 mana.
Once you've got the 4 mana.
Okay,
like
so once you hit turn 4, you get the lifesteal.
Yeah.
So this is essentially always going to have lifesteal with Il'gynoth because you're never comboing earlier than that, which is why the deck is bad. But I don't know how it would work with Jace. I would imagine you get the lifesteal, but like I don't know. And I think oftentimes
I imagine you get it because Jace will probably just replay the card and
he plays the point. Like, it doesn't transform into a different card.
No, it's not like a ranked card, right? Like, the ranked cards transform, don't they?
Right, and so does something like a corrupt card. So those would depend on how you, or an infused card. Those transform. This just has an extra effect if you have the requisite mana.
Yeah, I think that's why it's so confusing, is because, like, it's basically a ranked card, but it doesn't actually transform, which is, like, the weird thing. So, yeah. Regardless, this card's busted. It's going to be a strong card for a very long time, I think, in Wild. Even in Standard, obviously. All right, let's move into Druid. Let's start with the big one that everybody's talking about. Let's start with the legendary. A Nubricon, 8 mana, 7/7 undead. Legendary Battle Cry. Gain 8 armor. This turn, your minions cost armor instead of mana. Again, there's this whole thing where you just aren't spending mana, and that always just means broken things potentially waiting to happen. So I guess the first question before we even start evaluating, if you do not have any armor, can you cast cards? I guess is the question.
Wait, what do you mean?
Like, if you use up your armor and you go to 0 armor, are you still able to cast cards?
No, you would be. Yeah, so there would be times where this can kind of fizzle out pretty quickly. Also, I know Corb was looking at this with Violet Teacher. I don't think we ever got an answer on how that interaction would work because, like, dev's on holiday and that kind of thing. Did we ever get an answer on that?
No, I've been waiting for days, but understandably everyone's away. I'm still not entirely sure whether it works with Violet Illusionist, but like I haven't heard a convincing argument why it doesn't. But that said, like, I don't know. I don't know whether it's going to be the same as Health or if they program it different. Like, I don't know.
I guess the way that you could test it is, like, do you lose armor when your opponent plays Plate Breaker and your hero is immune? Like,
you do, but again, there's like the subtleties and the difference of the wording, where it's like even something like the armor card in Warrior, like spend all your armor to deal that mana, to deal that damage. Like the wording isn't quite the same. There's nothing that really replicates this, which is why it's a little confusing.
So when you get hit, Mal'Ganis, you don't lose armor though, and so. Is that different than this?
No, again, like if you don't lose armor if you're immune, but that's if like the cards cost health, right? And so like the health can eat into the armor. Health cost can eat into armor, but does armor by itself go down? Is like the question. Like if it specifies where do things change? I don't know. It's very complicated. I think we just need to wait for a dev response, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it even has slightly different wording to Stealer of Souls as well, so we can't use that as a necessarily as like an example, although that's probably our best example, in which case it did work with Violet Illusionist. So let's maybe live in a world.
Let's ignore that.
No, I think we can live in a world where it does happen, and
we can evaluate it both ways. We can do both.
Right. I think I'm on record saying that, like, still probably not the most broken thing Druid can do in our format. Like, it has some potential to do silly things. I know that, like, even in Standard, if you're Guff, like, Bran into like, Denathrius is a lot of damage. Or into, you know, like, you can just start doing silly things. But I think the fact that it is limited to minions, like we saw with the, what's his name? Kael'thas, the new version of Kael'thas, quite a bit more limiting than being able to cheat out spells, and like you know, while this could open things up, I don't know if it opens up anything like completely unique that Druid isn't already capable of with either alignment or like an Avionicon combo. That said, in conjunction with some of those things and some of the mana cheat that Druid already has, it can pretty reliably like do some bonkers things. So it's maybe a little bit concerning. Although I don't think that like single-handedly game breaking. I think that it further breaks some of the brokenness that's already in Druid, I guess is the concern here. Not like this card single-handedly, you know, opening up things for Druid. I think that it just like exacerbates some of the problems that Druid has, which is not spending mana.
Yeah, I think for example, Reno Druid, right? Reno Druid is a great spot where this can get very silly very quickly. Just because like you don't have to combo it with anything specific a lot of the time. Like I don't know. Like Roffle said, there's some very silly stuff with the Sire, Bran. There's also like the new legendary Astalor, where like this Bran Astalor can be like 50 damage for 11 mana if you have like 2 armor.
Right, without having to infuse either. And you
you just end up just playing everything out and
including like all versions of Astalor too, because
yeah,
that's nuts.
So things like that, right? Where doesn't have to be necessarily anything specific that it opens up, because it is a one-of. Like it is a little bit hard to build around like that. And it's probably why, even if it does work with Violet, that it probably won't be broken, because it's hard to build around one-ofs like that are singly focused on like Stealer, which was, you know, more consistent because it's 2 of and could be tutored and things like that. Could it be tutored? Did we tutor that card?
Yeah,
I think we did
Demons.
with Sense Demons. Yeah. So yeah, Reno Druid is kind of like the spot. Even like Dragon Druid as well. You know, Dragon Druid without the duplicate cards could also be quite silly. It's another brand deck. So pretty much like brand decks, you know? That's where this is gonna do the damage.
Just Druid decks, yeah.
Just like stuff Druid, not like specific
stuff
combos, just like the Druid decks that just put out stuff, and those stuffs will inevitably include Sire Denathrius and probably an Astalor, whether or not this works with Violet Illusionist to like be able to burst the opponent down, and we'll probably basically, like you said, anything with Bran is where you want to keep an eye on this.
It's also so nasty and standard with alignment. Like alignment in Wild is a lot more like you can pop off and do whatever you want. Standard's a little bit more limiting. This kind of removes that that limit. You know, you can do anything you want with that. So
yeah, I think this all but kind of just solidifies the whole class identity of Druid just being what is mana, because what is mana when it comes to Druid, because you just have infinite. I don't know, it's a super exciting card, something to obviously keep an eye on, right? Because again, when you don't have to spend mana, things potentially get kind of spooky. I guess that means a whole lot less in Druid because you have infinite mana anyways, now that I'm thinking about it, compared to something like Warlock.
Always have more infinite mana.
Right. No, think about like the redundancy of Twig Sphere, of Floop's Gloop into both like Scale and Flipper Friends when people started figuring that out, how like backbreaking that became, and how like that propelled the deck. Now this is just one more bit of redundancy. They have one more infinite mana turn that they can potentially have, or extend their infinite mana turn into infinity times 2 now, and then you're really dead. So
yeah. I hate Druid. All right, next up, let's talk about a couple of minions here that are reinforcing kind of the armor theme that Druid's got going on. Starting with Underking, 7 mana 6/6 undead minion with Rush, Battlecry, and Death Rattle, gain 6 armor. Essentially, it's a 7 mana deal 6, gain 12. Yeah, it's. I don't think this is very great in our format.
We have better ways to gain armor if we really need it, and remove minions.
We have plenty of ways. Not super exciting. But the other one is Crypt Keeper. 8 mana 4/6 undead taunt, cost 1 less for each armor that you have. Okay, so I mean it's 0 mana. We have seen effects like this. I think we've talked about this like a bunch of times. Just this review season of 0 mana 4/4, 0 mana 4/6 aren't great, right? But this comes with taunt. It's a 0 mana 4/6 in a class that gains a ton of armor. Like it's not the hardest thing to come on mind. It's just, is it worth it, right?
Depends how early it comes down, right? Because like the 5 mana versions are a little too slow. But if this is like you play Howl on 3 and then you play it, but you know, like a turn 3, 4, 6 taunt is a lot better than the turn 5. So I don't know. I don't think like Howl's good enough because I don't think you have enough cards like on the play. Like it has to be like an on the coin thing. So it's probably not good enough.
Yeah, I mean, it might be kind of close though. You don't actually have like the abundance of armor game that you used to have in Druid right now. You just kind of have like what Howl and branching paths for the most part. So, I mean, I guess with a Nubricon now you have a little bit more, and it's maybe worth looking at. But anything that can cost 0 is potentially spooky. This one, like I think it's maybe not exactly.
Do we potentially like it more in the Jade Druid with things like the new 2-mana armor card as well?
Yeah, I was gonna actually ask like, is this worth considering Oaken Summons again? With like Vargoth and 5/10s, and then you go you play Oaken on 4, and then turn 5 you go 2 4/6s with taunt to back that up.
How much, like, other than hyper aggro, which you'd still probably be too slow against, how much is Druid losing to like board based decks anyway, though, right? Like, I don't think that bringing Oaken Summons in might like change that, because like an injured Marauder can stop them in their tracks, but like,
doesn't need it.
Right. And like that's going to help you against a few decks, but you're still probably losing to Shadow Priest, Pirate Rogue, and even Shaman. So like, what does it start beating that it isn't already beating?
I don't know. I just think that like it's something to consider, right? Like
it's something
0
to
and a
take
4
a look
6
at, and it's if people ever want to start playing Taunt Druid, though, that could be a place to look at it. And even then, it's not spectacular, but it does give you an undead to bring back off of New Zoth, I guess. I don't know. It's a card that, like, it could be very good, but you probably want to be running more armor gain than Druid currently is.
Yeah, Quartet Defender's undead, and I think you want to run that in your Taunt Druid anyway, so I don't even know if this is like your reasoning. Yeah. All right. We spent too much time on this. Let's talk about the other 2 spells here. Beetlemancy, 5-mana spell. Choose one. Gain 12 armor or summon 2/3/3 beetles with taunt. 5-mana gain 12. We have 4-mana gain 12. That also draws us cards instead, so I don't really see a world that this is ever worth it. And then last up, we have Chitness Plating. 2-mana spell. 2-mana gain 4 armor at the start of your next turn. Gain 4 more. Theoretically, 2-mana gain 8 over the span of 2 turns. This seems like it works really, really nicely with stuff like Crypt Keeper and things like that.
I think splitting it does make it a little bit awkward with Crypt Keeper, though, because like you could take 4 or 5 damage after you play it, and then like you still can't get the Crypt Keeper down behind it. So I don't know. It still just seems worse than Ferocious Howl, and Ferocious Howl is like barely in the deck right now. So I'm not sold on it unless people start going really hard on the armor gain for whatever reason.
I mean, I kind of like it in the Jade Druid. Like, I think Jade Druid can be built around this armor package. Works very well with Spellstone. It's a cute little thing. And yeah, I mean, you can always like bank it on turn 3, right, into the Oaken Summons, and then you can get the Creep Keeper down for sure. Like being able to like plan around it is kind of cute. But yeah, I can see like Jade Druid kind of just like filling out with these armor cards instead to greatly improve the aggro.
I mean, Jade Druid does like want to run a low curve that dumps hand, and this plays right into that. So, as does the Crypt Keeper. So maybe that could be the place that it does fit in. And it's lacking some of the same defensive tools that other slow druids have. So maybe
it'd be so frustrating. I'm just like picturing if that's a deck, if it's like gain 60 armor druid, like with due process. Okay, fine.
Yeah, you said Spellstone, dude. That's a card I haven't heard about in a very long time, or seen. All right, let's move into Hunter here. We finally got some Hunter cards revealed. So let's start with Hope of Kael'Thalas. This is a legendary weapon, 6 mana for a 4/2 weapon. After your hero attacks, give your minions +1/+1 wherever they are. So hand, board, minions in your deck all get buffed. So basically, it's 6 mana, 2 turns, +2/+2 for everything. It seems mightily slow, but it's obviously a very powerful effect.
Yeah, it's a powerful effect, but probably a turn or two too slow for the format, unfortunately. That's a very strong effect, though. Like, just run Blingatron and pray, and then you get it on 5 instead of 6. That's a turn sooner. Yeah, I could see this being a very strong standard card. Probably just a little bit off the pace of Wild.
Yeah, I think in Wild, you could consider it in Beast Hunter if we go without Wild Spirits. Like we just cut out, if it's just Harpoon Gun on this, then I think that's okay. If we're also running Wild Spirits, it's too many weapons. It would dramatically improve things like the Reno Priest matchup, right? Like all of a sudden Reno Priest this is so much buff, like it's disgusting. So I don't know, like very promising, but again, 6 mana, 6 mana. So it probably requires the meta to be a lot of Reno decks in general, which, to be fair, it is right now.
Can I interest you in a selfless sidekick to pull this out of your deck like we used to do with Oleneth? And you automatically get to use it?
That's one less beast that
I'm just talking about like a Reno Hunter, right?
Gun. You just said we were cutting Harpoon Gun me out.
Yeah.
Well, I'm talking about like a Reno Hunter. I'm talking about not Beast Hunter.
Oh, you just said we were cutting Rinling's Rifle me out. I don't.
Yeah. And you really want to be running Harpoon Gun and Reno Hunter as well, because that card is bonkers.
All right. Well, I'm trying to figure out a way to do this because it is a lot of stats and a way to consistently have it. 6 or 7 sounds pretty good to me. But yeah, I am kind of in agreement with you guys that like 6 mana is pretty slow, but we'll see. So next up, kind of continuing with this hero attacks kind of package in Hunter, which is a very weird package, but we'll maybe touch on that later. We have Shock Spitter, 2 mana, 2/2 beast. Battlecry, deal 1 damage. Improved by your hero attacks this game, so it upgrades the amount of damage that this deals. It's worded very similarly to like the Kurtrus Hero power or Kurtrus Hero in Demon Hunter. I know you guys might not know what that card or class is because we are wild gamers. Yeah, so the more you attack with weapons. So we talked about Hope of Kel'Thuzos. We do have 2 1 mana 1/3 and 1/4 weapons in wild. So this is like very consistently like better Merc Sparkiel on 2 if you have that 1-drop weapon. The question is like what deck is this going in that wants to take advantage of these 1-cost weapons and then something like Shock Spitter?
Right, because like if you talk about Beast Hunter, it probably it could probably afford to run a Candle Shot, but then you're reducing the density of beasts in your deck, which has its own problems. You're getting a little bit of interference with your Harpoon Gun, which is such a good card, and you just have like an assortment of high quality beasts. But like, I don't know, maybe probably just throw this in a Reno Hunter and the Face Hunter that we saw Corb playing a bit early on. Like it could slot in the either one of those 1 mana weapons, and like this would just be pretty good in that deck in general. Like it goes face, right? Like so you start ramping that up pretty quick. I think that's maybe where it wants to be, is either an aggressive Reno Hunter or like just an all-out Face Hunter type thing with those 1 mana weapons and potentially more.
Yeah, I don't want to sleep on this card because like True Aim Crescent on 1, like this is a turn 4 deal 5. Like this is so much damage, man. Like it stacks so quick. In Beast Hunter, like I don't know if you run the Candle Shot. Again, you're kind of just like talking about cutting Wild Spirits, right? Because you can't be running all those weapons. But I don't know, it's a lot of reach. Like pretty crazy with those 1 mana weapons. And again, like Matt said, we do have 4 copies compared to standard, so this might be one of those things where we just kind of abuse it with cards that aren't meant to be in the pool together.
Yeah, it does seem like it has a ton of upside, and it seems like it's going to be used. If you're playing that aggressive Reno Hunter or Face Hunter build, you're playing the 4 1-cost weapons. It seems like it'd go really, really well with our last card here of this package, Keen Eye Spotter. 3 mana, 3/4. Whenever your hero attacks a minion, set its health to 1. So we have the 4 1 attack, 1-cost weapons. So this becomes 3 mana, kind of just kill minions, like assassinate minions, which is obviously some pretty strong synergy. So it's kind of like these two cards, right? You'll have 4 cards plus the 4 weapons. It's kind of like your package of cards in a face hunter or like an aggress. If you're a Reno hunter, I guess you only get 4 instead of 8. But they do actually seem like a very powerful package.
Yeah, I mean, especially with Candle Shot, this just like decimates an opponent's board if they set up a taunt. You just chop right through it. It's seems pretty nice. Like you could probably just lean on those 4 weapons because if you're running this card because they have 1 attack, so like you don't really need much more than that. They're just there to activate these types of things. But yeah, I'm a little bit less high on this card than the Shock Spitter, just because like 3 mana is a little bit slow for what those decks want to be. And why attack minion when you can attack face is another question for like that face hunter in particular. So this one I'm a little bit less high on. I think Shock Spitter is looking pretty good though.
And then next up for hunter, we have an arcane spell synergy package here. So we've already talked about Arcane Quiver, which was the discover spell from your deck. If it's arcane, give it spell damage +1. So kind of supplement this whole package. Let's start with the legendary Haldren Brightwing, 3 mana 3/4. Battlecry, give all arcane spells in your deck spell damage +1. And so then you have, kind of the payoffs. So you've got Conjured Arrow, 2 mana arcane spell, deal 2 damage to a minion. Mana Thirst 6, draw that many cards. So if you draw this later in the game, it's deal X amount of damage, draw X amount of cards, which is kind of insane. You have Eversong Portal, which is a 4 mana arcane spell. Summon 1/4/4 links with Rush, improved by spell damage. I believe if you give this thing spell damage, it scales the number of 4/4 links with Rush that you're summoning. So that's also kind of insane. You have Silvermoon Forest Rider, 2 mana 2/3 Battlecry, give all arcane spells in your hand spell damage +1. And then last but not least, you have Ricochet Shot, 1 mana arcane spell, deal 1 damage to 3 enemy minions. So it will not like ping the enemy hero 3 times, but if you have the random enemy hero and like 2 pirates, it'll kill the 2 pirates and then deal 1 to the enemy hero. These all kind of shout quest hunter support to me in wild, kind of on the surface. Especially that Conjured Arrow seems pretty sweet in something like Quest Hunter. How are we feeling about the package in general? And is there maybe more places that we can see it outside of Quest Hunter? I guess is the kind of the general questions.
The package in general doesn't like make me want to play an arcane hunter, mostly just because there are so few options that are wild exclusive, and that's typically what like makes a wild deck is a new package of cards like this combining with an existing set of cards. I don't think that these independently are strong enough for our format, but I had the same thought as you. I think Conjured Arrow seems pretty silly in Questline Hunter, and Ricochet Shot is probably worth a look as well, just because those are cards that are already kind of doing what the deck wants to do. Maybe that turns into like Arcane Quiver being worth playing, just because you're slightly increasing the number of arcane spells that you have in your deck, and Arcane Quiver is also just kind of good once you complete the quest. Conjured Arrow is like outrageous if you have the quest completed and the opponent has minions. Theoretically, you could use it on your own minions as well from like the spells that summon minions. So I think at the very least we'll probably see Conjured Arrow and Ricochet Shot tested. I think I'm thinking they'll both probably find their way in, especially if people start going back to like Renathal versions that were popular in Standard for a bit.
Yeah, I think Standard will, not Standard, Questland Hunter will probably just play the Arrow and the Shot. I don't think it needs to lean onto too much more of the package, but the package in general outside Quest Hunter I'm actually quite excited about. Eversong Portal is kind of disgusting. Like like this card could potentially be so broken. The Arcane Quiver into Eversong Portal is a little bit of a reminiscent of like Scavenge Annuity into Walpertinger. It's a little bit less flexible, but it can potentially scale higher, and the minions have Rush, right? So like they can kind of make that immediate impact. So I don't know, like I'm actually kind of into this. Like, again, it would be nice if we had like 5 years of arcane spells to lean back on instead of literally just arcane shot and the entire history of Hearthstone, which is a bit weird how we've only had one and now we have a whole bunch. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of like this package, even in sort of the aggressive hunter deck that Ruffle was talking about before with Keen Eye and Shock Spitter. I can actually see like another just generic aggro hunter kind of like playing this package just because Portal is so busted. So I don't know. I really, really like this hunter set a lot. It's probably more likely to shine at standard, but I think these cards are cool in general. And yeah, I think it's just one of the better one of the better sets we got from this expansion.
Yeah, I guess for the memers out there, if you like give Eversong Portal spell damage with like Farstrider or Arcane Quiver, does it maintain spell damage if you like resummon it or recast it with something like Zul'jin? I don't assume so, but
I think no, because it's again not transforming the card, so it'll probably just take into account whatever spell damage you have on the board.
So not as good with Zul'jin. Sorry to all the memers out there. But
remember the 7-mana legendary, which I have
Vanessa
no idea what
or
its name is.
Vicina or whatever her name is.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, yeah, Windrunner, right? Yeah.
Get a weapon when you attack, gain +2 spell damage or something, right?
There we go.
Yeah.
You're one of the 3 people that remembers that.
Yeah. I remember playing that in Malagos Hunter. That's the only reason I remember that. Yeah, 7-mana legendaries and well. Let's not do that. All right. Anyways, let's move to Mage. Mage is now we talked a lot about Mizaki Mage and Quest Mage and APM Mage last time.
We actually forgot one card for Hunter the Scourge Tamer.
Oh.
Yeah. All right. Last but not least for Hunter, we have Scourge Tamer. 2-mana 2/2 undead battlecry. Craft a custom zombies. Oh, you got a Rexer hero power on a stick. Still doesn't seem good, but it's on a stick, I guess.
You probably play it in Arena Hunter, right? Like you can get like
how good is a random zombies? I guess
they get worse over time.
Yeah.
But they're still okay. Like 2-mana draw, situationally, like useful card. I think you could probably make an argument for it. Yeah, it's fine. It's just a fun card. It's a fun throwback.
No comments. No.
I've made my feelings on Rexar quite clear.
All right. Let's move into Mage here. We've talked about APM Mage. We talked about Mizaki Mage. We talked about Quest Mage last week. The other kind of set that it's getting is the content creation set here. Yeah, Roffle, the set's for you. Casino Mage getting some support. So we got 3 cards to talk about. Let's start with the legendary Grand Magister Ramath. 9 mana, 5/7. Battlecry. Recast each spell you've cast this game that didn't start in your deck. So it's like a Shutterwalk Jace effect for this style of deck.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. It's, what I'm hearing from this. I love this card, and I can't wait to play it.
Yeah. It can replay your quest reward. Oh my god.
9 mana parrot.
This and Vexilus just completely broke the format. You're right. You can get 3 extra turns. Never before done. They're never done before in our format.
All right, let's move on to Prismatic Elemental. 2 mana, 1/3 Battlecry. It's obviously an elemental. Battlecry. Discover a spell from any class. It costs 1 less. It's not discovering a mage spell, unfortunately. It is any spell. Speaking of Burgle support, it does get a cost reduction though. Roffle, is this making this its way into your Casino Mage deck?
I mean, probably, but only because it's a new card. The one cost reduction, like you're basically playing a 1-mana 1/3, right? But like, sort of. I mean, it doesn't do anything that like a Babbling Book or even the 1/2 that discovers isn't doing better already. I think so. I think that opening it up to other classes actually makes it worse, and mage spells tend to be higher quality than some of the other classes. The next card is actually the one that I am more excited about for that type of archetype.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of, Energy Shaper, 4 mana 3/5. Battlecry, transform all spells in your hand into ones that cost 2 more, but they keep their original cost. It very much reads like Deck of Lunacy, but for cards in your hand rather than your deck. And it comes attached to a 4 mana 3/5, so a little bit of tempo when you're doing that. The Dream, I guess, like evocation into this, and then keep all the spells that you transformed, and then you get a whole bunch of stuff. Sunwell into Energy Shaper, imagine.
Or, hear me out on this one. What if you just play Energy Shaper with Sunwell in hand, and then it potentially transforms into a spell that does
Something.
literally anything?
Yeah. I mean, this seems like Deck of Lunacy was a deck-defining card, right? In Standard. Wasn't really a competitive thing in WoW, but it was a fun thing to do, right? Like, it could win games. And it seems like Energy Shaper, like, is good, right, with that, right?
Yeah, and like the fact that you can run 2 of them allows you to reroll anything that like hard whiffs, and then also get like double the benefit. Again, it's not going to be good. It just like it's not meant to be, but I'm into it.
And then last but not least for Mage here, we have Vast Wisdom. 3 mana spell that says discover 2 spells that cost 3 or less. I believe that because it says discover, you're discovering 2 Mage cards. So this one actually is Mage spells that you're discovering. And then it says swap their cost. So some cute things that you can kind of manipulate with the cards that you are discovering. So I guess the question is, does this also potentially make its way into Quest Mage? Do we think that the quality of this is high enough?
No, I think that if this were to be a card for Quest Mage, first of all, it would probably have to cost 1 less. Second of all, like I think you would want to remove the 3 or less limitation so that you could do like kind of a prismatic lanes thing where you could get 1 of each extreme, and then that would make it like just eat the card that is normally of a low cost, and like hard cast something silly like a pyro for 0 mana or something along those lines, obviously being the dream. But no, I think this is meant more for the archetype we were just talking about than Quest Mage. I think it's way too slow for Quest Mage.
Yeah, it's not really like cheating any mana, which is good because if it was doing a prismatic lens thing, that could be very, very tilting.
So Mage cards in general, we've talked about a lot of these. Casino Mage stuff doesn't seem super competitive, but it does seem super fun to play, right? If you were into that kind of thing.
Right. I think people would absolutely hate it if Casino Mage were competitive. Like there's a brief period of time where like Yogg in Tempo Mage was like a legitimate thing, and people actually just hated it. Like you don't want that type of deck to be like competitively viable.
Yeah. All right. God, reminds me of like OG Quest Mage, like with Mana Cyclones, where you like actually had to rely on the random spells, and that was not fun either. All right, moving on. We've seen all the Paladin card reveals, so we're gonna move on into Priest. And man, Priest got some cards, indeed. So let's start with the first legendary, Sister Svalna, 6 mana 6/6 undead. Battlecry, permanently add a Vision of Darkness to your hand. So the Vision of Darkness is a 3 mana spell that says discover a shadow spell. It does not keep discount. So if you play Sister Svalna and then you play like a palm reading or something like that, or radiant, I guess radiant elemental doesn't count, but you like play a palm reading and discount it to 2, the next copy of Vision of Darkness becomes 3. So like you get infinite value, but it's very slow value, and it's a shadow spell from like all of the shadow spells that Priest has. So seems super slow. I know I've seen a lot of people talking about this in something like Reno Priest as like a late game value engine, but like I don't know that you need that, and it seems so bad in every matchup that's not the mirror.
I think it kind of seems bad in the mirror, right? Like doesn't just like spending 3 mana per turn doesn't make much progress in terms of like the outcome of the game. The fact that like if it could be discounted, yeah, you would run it because like maybe you could get a palm reading, but you also want to play palm reading on like 3 so that you can discount your hand early and really get the benefit of that so that you have a better chance of winning the game. So no, infinite value is not what our format does.
1 star. for the infinite value card.
Yeah, since the card's so bad, I'm gonna take a short second here. The art on this card though is like absolutely gorgeous.
Oh,
it just sucks that the
5-star.
card sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's not it's not the artist's fault that the card sucks, but the card sucks, and
it's just it sucks because then nobody's gonna appreciate the like sweet art. You know, that's
oh no, people are gonna play this card, Meowth. Don't. What are you talking about? I'm gonna see this card all the time. Coming out of my hand at some point. Like, it's a fun card. It's just like you're wasting a slot in Reno Priest. Like, there are times where with like identity theft, thought steal, like you have too many cards in hand. You don't want to be crowding it with a 3-mana unplayable card. Like, which is what this ends up being.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of unplayable, let's talk about the other legendary. At least unplayable for now. High Cultist Basilev. 5-mana 3/5 battle cry. Resurrect all friendly undead that died after your last turn.
That is very specific.
Yeah, it's got that whole undead thing, right? The theme. I know Corb and I like looked through a bunch of these cards when we were doing a co-op. There's not a lot of good undead minions just in general, let alone in Priest, including some of the new ones. And so just like it's so bad, right? Like the whole undead mechanic just seems kind of like a flop, especially for Wild. And this one, like, it seems like you're playing like a tempo undead priest is what this kind of card is pushing for, and it just doesn't have the support for any of that in Wild.
Which, like, you know, maybe you could think about like an old Undertaker priest in that type of that fits that type of archetype, right? But like the restriction of after your last turn really limits things. So you can't like bank some Undertakers and a few like undead death rattles and then rip this bad boy and bam, instant big board. You have to like kill all of your stuff, which if you're killing that much stuff, like your Undertakers are already pretty big. So why aren't they going face? And then on like, or like wait for your opponent to clear your board, in which case you're sad and then you bring it back. But like, you just lose games sometimes when your opponent clears your board if you're playing that deck. Like, that's, you don't need to run it. It's so specific to the undead and the timing that it like it can't be good.
Guys, it's flavorful, all right? They bring in this new tribe. It's dead on arrival, and then they revive it in the mini set. That's just what we got to wait for.
I don't see a world where this card can be revived though, because of again, unless they change the after your last turn wording on this. Like, I don't understand how this card can ever be worth playing.
I agree. I just have to take a short minute to give props for that, Corb. That was good. Speaking of not good, Haunting Nightmare, 3-mana 3/3 undead, Death Rattle, haunt a card in your hand. When you play it, summon a 3/3. So you have to play this 3-mana 3/3 that has no immediate impact. You then have to kill your 3-mana 3/3, and then you have to spend the mana to play the card that it haunts to get a 3/3. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Grave Digging. So this is a card that I'm excited for, just not now. For whenever they print eventually good undead cards. It's a 4-mana shadow spell that says draw 2 cards. This costs 1 if a friendly undead died after your last turn. 1-mana draw 2 is very intriguing and enticing if we ever get undead cards. The issue is like even in that Undertaker style of deck, you don't have enough good undead cards to really make this work because you want a very, very high density, because if you're spending 4 mana on this, you were extremely sad. So you're looking at probably like 15 to 16 undead cards in your deck minimum, right? So that this is consistently active when you draw it. And we are just very far from that point. So maybe want to keep an eye on for the future, but this does not seem super powerful right now.
Agreed. We just don't have the density or quality of undead minions to be worth building around right now.
All right, let's talk about the one priest card that looks like it might actually have potential though. Let's talk about Animate Dead. 1-mana shadow spell. Resurrect a friendly minion that cost 3 or less. So a very powerful effect that's very open-ended, which I think is actually super exciting for this kind of card. It's not limited to like resurrect a friendly undead minion or something like that. So you can do something like as simple as like resurrecting an injured marauder, or I guess was it Blade Master, the one that costs the 3 mana 4/7, and do some like cycle pump shenanigans. Or you could go full degen and resurrect Radiant Elementals and Nazmani Bloodweavers and cheat all the mana in the world and play 0 mana Giants, which is probably what you should be doing. Which sounds very exciting for the kind of players that like that.
It's also good in like any Death Rattle deck, whether it's boars. So it's another way to get boars going in Priest, or like birds and weasels if you want to aggravate your opponents, or even like a dead ringer. So essentially any Death Rattle deck wants this, but I think like the Nazmani Radiant is probably like the best fit for this. Like this play, like kill a Nazmani, play this into a Gadget Sound Auctioneer, and then like play your entire deck. Like that's a thing that Priest can already do. You can spend 4 mana on an Auctioneer as well if you hit it off of an Insight. So like there's a lot of potential for this card. Maybe not like competitively, but like there's some pretty fun stuff that you can do. And even like those like the Malygos Nazmani decks were pretty competitive for a while in Standard, and this gives you another way to kind of mimic that.
Yeah. You know, that Nazmani Boon Priest archetype is something that I'm very interested in trying. I like the idea of tempo Nazmani, and if you kill it, you res it back and you die, and if you don't kill it, well, the opponent dies. So that seems good. As for like anything else, it has to be like very specific in something like Boar Priest, because you can't really run other minions, but like that's probably fine. Like a lot of the time, you can probably build it in a way where it makes a lot of sense. So I think that's a good shout as well.
All right. I think it's just sweet because it's open ended and it's not limited to all this stupid undead stuff that Priest seems to have going on. Next up, we have Bonecaller. 4 mana 2/4 taunt. Death Rattle. Resurrect a friendly undead that died this game. So again, kind of the big issue is that you just don't have high quality undead stuff right now, especially when you're looking at like the Priest class. The one thing that's a little bit interesting is Deathlord is something that's it can be given the undead tribes. So you could do something like Bonecaller, Animate Dead, Resurrect like Deathlords, maybe some of the 3 mana 4/4 Dancing Swords, and play some Mill Priest if you're so inclined, or you just like summon a bunch of Deathlords and eventually like confuse and kill the opponent. That's like the only upside I see for Bonecaller, because again, like just other undead minions just don't seem to be worth.
It's a Death Rattle, unfortunately, so it's like so much slower than like.
Whoa! I didn't even see that it was a Death Rattle. Oh my god!
Yeah, like I said, Priest is yeah. I tried to give upside. It's so hard for some of these cards. Yeah. All right. Shadow Word on Death. 5 mana Shadow spell. Deal 2 damage to all enemies. That includes the enemy hero. If a friendly undead died after your last turn, deal 2 more. So if it's active, it's an insane card. It's very rarely going to be active, and then you also are Priest and Wild, so you have literally all the other removal. That seems just better and unconditional. So
probably more like aggro top end recovery, because at least goes face. Like if you're playing, I don't know, like if you're playing like a aggro undead Shadow Priest, it's not great, but it probably like can solo a matchup like even Shaman or Pirate Rogue sometimes. Like, I don't even know. Not sure. I mean, it's like a kill everything so that way you don't die, and then you just get to go face for 4, and then you get to go over the top the next turn. So it probably does help a lot in those matchups, but again, we're talking about a deck that doesn't exist. So.
And probably won't exist, because...
Yeah.
All right. Next up, Crystal Smith Cultist. 1 mana 1/2 Battle Cry. If you're holding a shadow spell, gain +1/+1. So there's a couple of kind of areas that a lot of people are considering this, right? So obviously, aggro Shadow Priest has a 1 mana 2/3. The issue in that deck is you run 6 shadow spells. So how often is this online? Because if it's not online turn 1, even turn 2, it gets a lot worse. Like as a 2/3, the card is not good. And so just like how consistently.
It's like really bad off Raised Dead as well.
Yeah, so that's one option. The other one is like, do you play this as like a zombie chow in something like Reno Priest? Because you have a lot more shadow spells in there. It's a lot more likely to be active, but then you are playing one copy in your 40 card deck. Again, that's really only good on turn 1 or turn 2 in that deck. So those are kind of the two places that people are talking about it. The question is, like, it seems really good in the aggro Shadow Priest if it's active, but is it going to be active enough? And then is it good enough in the Reno Priest?
Probably no to both. If I had to guess, I think people will try it, get disappointed by how infrequently it's online, in particular in the aggro deck, because I don't think you want to run more shadow spells than you're already running just to increase your shadow visions into Mind Blast, consistency.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't really want to keep any of the shadow spells, I don't think either. So, because you want to draw them off of the 2/3. So, yeah. Like 6 spells is probably not a high enough density to run it. Maybe it's closer in a Reno Priest, but like that deck doesn't really need to fight for board because of the combination of the hero power and the efficient removal. Like, just kills your stuff.
I kind of think it's closer in Reno Priest. I'm willing to give it a shot in that deck. Someone did raise the question of like, if this is meant to be good in Arena Priest, why aren't we just playing Zombie Chow right now? Which I'm like, fair enough. But at the same time, if you're against other like Reno decks or like Druids or something, like the health swing does matter. You know, like you can get in there for like 2, 4, 6 damage in the early game, and like not having that worth nothing is good. So, I don't know. I'll give it a shot in Reno Priest. Could be okay.
All right. Next up, we have Mind Eater. Jokes aside, right? The obvious jokes that are going to be said with this card. It is a 2-mana 3/2 undead minion. Death Rattle. Add a copy of a card in your opponent's deck to your hand. Death Rattle version of stuff like Lazul and Psychic Conjurer and all those effects that we've seen before. Just not very exciting, even though it's attached to a 2-mana 3/2.
I mean, we've seen this already in the Oracle. As
the 1/1, yeah.
1/1. And it's not good enough to run because Death Rattle is so much slower than Battlecry. Like, it's just... Death Rattle is not Battlecry, it never will be, and that's why it's able to be fairly statted, is because it's Death Rattle and not Battlecry.
Alright, and last but not least, we have Undying Allies. 0-mana shadow spell. After you play an undead this turn, give it Reborn. So I believe that if you play this and then you play like 3 undead minions, that they will all 3 get reborn, is kind of how I'm reading that. But again, it says play, not summon, so you can't go like undead allies, play rally, get 3 cards, and then give them all reborn, because that's a summon, not a play effect. It seems very slow. Like, it's a powerful effect, I feel like, if it finds the right home. It's just like the right home is probably way too slow and wild.
Yeah.
And it's also the whole undead thing. You know?
The whole undead thing is what's giving me the biggest hesitation right now. It's like, the undead minions do not seem good for any class.
Yeah. It seems like a common theme. Undead bad, Death Rattle bad, just big pause of stats bad, right? And we're seeing a lot of that this set, which is a little bit disappointing. All right, Corb. Any last words? I know you didn't have a lot to say about some of these really, really bad priest cards, but any final thoughts?
Well, yeah, I don't know. Undying Allies is sort of interesting long term. Like, we have had Embalming Ritual, and that was like 1 mana, give a minion reborn, right? So you can kind of see the potential where if this is hitting 3 minions or something, then that's intriguing. But it's like, how realistic is that? Is that something that can never really happen? I don't know. Probably not with the current card pool. It's difficult to see. But yeah, I don't know. This priest set, man, like, there's a couple good things like grave digging, but it's all just like, we need better undeads. Like, it's all kind of gearing towards either aggro shadow undead, which doesn't exist, or we're just like banking this Nesmani thing. Other than that, a lot of these cards are just like way too limiting.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to a little bit more of an exciting class. All right, let's move into Rogue. I feel like we haven't talked about any of the rogue cards this set because we're just now seeing stuff. Shadow of Demise is the first legendary. It is a legendary shadow spell with no mana cost, because each time you cast a spell, Shadow of Demise will transform into a copy of that spell. I have found this a very, very hard card to evaluate because we've seen it kind of once before, right? With the ring off of Queen of Shara, and then I guess we've kind of seen it off of like Valera, but like the Death Knight. But is this something that's like worth considering in your kind of meta decks, right? Like your Miracle Rogues, your Pillager Rogues, your Mind Rogues, like is probably going to be the question.
Yeah, like Miracle Rogue seems to be the obvious choice, but if you think about like, what is it going to be, an extra copy of Counterfeit Coin, maybe another Bone Spike? It's probably fine off of Edwin if like you have another spell to play. It just doesn't. I don't know, because like you don't want to pay mana for your spells, which means that you're copying like another 0 mana spell, which doesn't seem great. Like you can't use it to get another secret passage. You can't like I don't know. Like it feels hard. It seems like it's cool and strong, but like then I think about where it would fit, and it just feels like, what cards do you need extra copies of when you're already like drawing so much of your deck in Miracle Rogue? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure about this one either. It's very tricky. I think out of the three combo rogue archetypes, Mind Rogue, Pillager, and Miracle, I think Pillager is the best suited for this. Um, I think like the Pillager getting an extra Shadow Step is like such a big deal compared to something that the other classes can get, so that's kind of big. But yeah, I don't know. Like weak top deck can be very awkward off passage compared to other cards. So how good is like knowing that it's never going to be like an above rate card, but it has the flexibility to be what you want, like, you know, sometimes with either coins or shadow steps or whatever. I'm
Or
not sure,
uh,
but
like in Pillager, it's another Cloak of Shadows too, which could give you another turn. Like that could be relevant. Like I don't. It doesn't feel like it wants to be any of the draw cards most of the time, because a lot of those, like, you're already hitting your combo pieces just by playing the first Shroud. But like maybe another Cloak could again, like we saw what Savara did with Ice Blocks and Quest Mage, so maybe it does something similar there.
one small thing as well is that it'll copy over the discount from Cutlass.
Mm-hmm.
Not from Prep obviously, but Cutlass is kind of a neat little thing as well. So that's just another thing, but I don't know. I don't know. I'll try it. I don't know if it's gonna be good. I think it'll be good in Pillager. But
Yeah, like I said, I started this whole thing with like it's a really hard card to evaluate because we've just like never seen this effect before. Like it's either going to be busted or it's going to be useless. Is kind of the consensus that I'm going to get from this conversation. Right?
No, I think there's a world where it's just like it's just good enough to play. Like I think that like being a third copy of a key spell or is like not necessarily inherently busted. It's just like good enough. I don't think it'll like be super busted. I think it'll just be like
good enough
good
or
enough.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder how many times though, like it being dead off of something like Passage or Edwin is going to be bad. But I mean, we have to play it and find out. All right, I'm going to talk about kind of the other two kind of just generic rogue cards. First, so Noxious Infiltrator. It's a 4-mana 2/5 with Poisonous Battlecry. If a friendly undead died after your last turn, deal 1 damage to a minion. This is like worse Valswine Slayer, and we don't ever play Valswine Slayer. So, last but not least, we have Ghostly Strike. 1 mana, deal 1, combo, draw a card. We finally got 1 mana Shiv, ish, kind of. This seems like a decent card, right, to evaluate, or I guess decent card to include in something like your Miracle Rogue, your Pillager Rogue, your Mind Rogue. I don't know how great of a jump it is compared to stuff like Door of Shadows or Gone Fishing, but it seems like marginally better because it
It
deals
seems to me it feels worse than Door of Shadows, but better than Gone Fishing. Just because like being able to spend mana on turn 1 with Door of Shadows is sometimes pretty relevant. I don't know. Door of Shadows seems like a really good card to me, and so does Ghostly Strike. But like, Like the combo can be limiting at times. Certainly not for like your Miracle Rogue Go turns. Like it's never going to lead with this, so it's always going to draw you a card. Uh, so I think it fits in nicely in there, but maybe a little bit less flexible in terms of like your generic combo decks for like Mine and Pillager Rogue.
Yeah, wow, a one mana cycle card in Rogue. That's crazy. I don't know. It'd probably be mostly a side grade. I think it'll be best in Pillager. I've said that twice now, which is very concerning. Two different cards. Something like Pillager is probably like just gonna be outright favored of Pirate Rogue with this. Like it was already a close matchup, and now that it gets the strike, take out like the 3/1, like it's probably just gonna win. I don't think it'll actually. I'm not sure if it'll fit into Mine Rogue. Like. I don't know, like it's kind of like a side grade of a Door and Gone, so I'm not sure, but I think Pillager's the best fit again.
Yeah, I do feel like we said this last expansion too, and then Pillager Rogue never really was the big bad like we thought. I mean, it seems it got better, but
and the part of that was that Secret Mage existed, and so like we could have seen a different world where Secret Mage didn't get objection and didn't rise in popularity as a result of getting new cards.
Yeah, we'll see. All right. Death Rattle Rogue got 2 new cards here, so we're going to touch on those 2, and then we'll jump into the big, exciting package. All right. Scourge Illusionist, 4 mana, 4/4 undead. Death Rattle, add a 4/4 copy of another Death Rattle minion in your deck to your hand. It costs 4 less. So basically, you play this 4 mana, 4/4, you crack your Necrium Blade, and you get a 4/4 copy of the big Death Rattle minions in your deck, but it costs 6, and it's in your hand. It obviously does not replace Cobalt Illusionist. I don't know what to do with this card.
So it gets hit off a sketchy, which is the big thing, and then so I think the plan that you want off of this is with a graveyard up, you play the sketchy, get this into hand, you get Mass Reveler for 0, and then you're hitting the Stoneborn General out of your deck for off of the Mass Reveler. All of that is very clunky and relies on things happening in a very specific and particular, not only order, but also like relying on those hits, right? Because if you hit the Stoneborn General off of the Scourge Illusionist, your the Death Rattle, it still doesn't cost 0, does it? Like it just adds 2 to hand. Yeah. So it's going to cost 2. So yeah, it's still a turn slower than what Illusionist was doing. Or previous Illusionist was doing. It's never going to be the same card, and it's never going to be as good, which is a good thing, because that, like, despite what a lot of my YouTube comments and Twitch chatters say, that deck was mega broken and needed to be nerfed. This is probably going to go in the deck, but it makes it much clunkier and less consistent, which is exactly what the problem was. Nemptulon wasn't. Illusionist was. And this is just a worse and clunkier version of that.
Sergeant Sally ends it. Right, guys? So good. No? Okay. I don't know.
Should we tell people what Sergeant Sally does? Because I don't think anybody actually knows what that card
is. No, if they want, they can go digging. Yeah, I don't know if you can pull off like a big rogue archetype with this. Like, I think this more fits the other rodent stuff, because like I said, like you can actually just like hit small stuff and it's fine, right? Because it costs 4 less. Like if you hit a 1-drop, who gives a shit? You got a 0 mana 4/4. Like that's fine. You don't have to cheat like infinite big minion with this, and it kind of pairs well with the rodent. So it's kind of like a different version of rogue that I'm picturing. That's something like big rogue.
Yeah, just like a full-on sketchy rogue, where all of your, or the majority of your death rattles are 4 or less. If you hit this, that's good. If you hit other things, like that's also pretty good. Like I mean, even like a Lillian, I think her name is the one that, like, that's a lot of pressure for an aggressive death rattle deck. You could hit cubes for 1 mana and do cube things with a snowfall graveyard, which is pretty gross. So yeah, I think that there's potential outside of just like the doing the old Cobalt Illusionist things.
Ooh, you got me excited about Egg Rogue now. Ooh,
Ooh,
dangerous.
there we go.
Yeah,
No,
I know it's gonna be
you,
bad, but you've
you,
interested me, and now
you
I'm gonna do
don't.
it. Look what
You
you guys
just don't
did.
run eggs in that deck, though.
Ooh, ooh, wait. Jade's Meowth. Jade Rogue.
Oh
Here we
my
go.
god.
All right,
You,
this is
you
the
guys are
LPG
giving
Mage rule.
my.
This is the new one. We talked about
I know
jades and eggs. We're moving on.
right, and you're giving
uh,
my chat ideas that I'm gonna have to live with.
all right. Well, I say all that. We're not really moving on because we got the last Death Rattle card here. Rotten Rodent. Corb kind of alluded to this card. 2 mana, 2/1 Undead Beast. Battle Cry. Reduce the cost of all Death Rattles in your deck by 1. Very, very powerful effect. If you do end up with something that has a lot of these like lower curve Death Rattles, it's like it's a flow for the Death Rattles in your deck, which is a very powerful effect. Does that deck exist right now? No. Could it exist because of this effect? Maybe, right? Like, it's a very powerful effect.
Yeah, especially like Rogue has ways to double up death rattles to like even hitting this off a sketchy, you're probably not upset about. And then if you're running like what is it, Bladed Acolyte as a 5 mana death rattle, you can actually make it active for the sketchy in the future turns. So yeah, I think that this in combination with the Scourge Illusionist gives you the potential to cheat a fair amount of mana on top of the mana that you're again already cheating with like Snowfall Graveyard and sketchy information. So
Yeah. Just
and
to be sorry, just
yeah.
to be clear, you can't draw this off of sketchy because it doesn't have a death
Oh,
rattle.
it's not
sketchy,
a death rattle
yeah.
itself. Okay, it's a battle cry. God, I need to
Just-
fully read these cards.
Sorry, just to make sure that the
Okay,
readers
so
are-
you can shadow step it then if you
Yeah.
really want to go crazy. I don't know that you would want to though.
This is potentially very broken. Like, I don't know. Mana cheat, this is kind of like open-ended like this. You know, this is Incantus flow. Spells are easier to like fit the death together than death rattles, but it's an Incantus flow, and like you can't step it. I don't know. Like Rogue has an abundance of card draw, and so like whether we're talking about like playing this on 2 and then there's like Secret Passage and there's like hand vomit out like 4 death rattle minions, or you know, roll the bones. Take this. It's a Hearthstone card. Maybe you could just like do something like that. So I don't know. I'm not sure if there's enough of the cheap death rattles, but like this is a potential 5-star broken card at some point. Like it's an Gigantic Flow. It's like a Mech Warper. You know, open-ended mana cheat is busted as hell. So
Yeah. All right. Now let's get to the big flashy package here. Let's talk about concoctions. So a lot of these cards that we're going to talk about are going to say add a concoction to your hand. So what is concoction? They're kind of like a mix of like Zeryl's toxins and like a Kazakis potion. So basically when it says add a concoction to your hand, you're going to get one of these 5 3-mana spells. Okay, you can get a bubbling concoction, which is a 3-mana spell that says deal 3 damage. Dreadful concoction, so 3-mana spell that says destroy random enemy minion. Gleaming concoction, 3-mana draw 2 cards. Hazy concoction, 3-mana add a card to your hand from another class. It costs 3 less. And sliding concoction, 3-mana spell that says summon a random 3-cost minion. Once you add a second concoction to your hand, they will combine their 2 effects like a Kazakis potion. So if you combine 2 together, so if you combine a gleaming concoction with a sliming concoction, then you will get a 3-mana spell that says draw 2 cards, summon a random 3-cost minion. You will only combine 2 of them, and then you'll add like a third and a fourth to get a second 3 cost. So it's actually a super unique kind of thing here. And let's talk about kind of the marquee legendary, which is Potion Master Putricide. Putricide is back as a 2-mana 1/4 legendary minion that says after a minion dies, add a concoction to your hand. So it's not just friendly minions that die. Any minion, friendly or enemy, you get one of these 3-mana spells. Seems like it can snowball out of hand very, very, very quickly if you can manage to kind of abuse kind of minions dying.
Yeah, snowballing minions tend not to be very strong, but like even just getting 1 or 2 concoctions is pretty nutty with this card. When he dies, you probably don't get a concoction, do you?
I do not believe so.
Okay. the concoctions seem very good, and so I'm not going to discount this card. But like, it's kind of like the same way the Death Rattle is in Battlecry. It seems like it takes some effort and time to like set this up, which you don't generally want to do. It does like pair well with the Dreadful concoction or even the bubbling concoction that like actually has the capacity to remove your, so if you wait until turn 5 or something, if you and you're able to remove your opponent's stuff that way, that could get you basically refill your hand for the with new concoctions, but that's also kind of slow. So kind of hard to evaluate it, but it seems as though some of the like there's a hard time getting concoctions in hand, and so this is one of the few ways that you can do that because it is a fairly small package. So maybe that's like its saving grace is they just don't have any other options if you want to play a concoction style rogue and you just really want to get the concoctions in hand. Probably just good enough also to play in like arena rogue. Like if you're just killing stuff, you can get a concoction or two, brew something up. You don't have to go in super hard on this on all of the cards in this package. You can just make some concoctions and go from there.
Yeah, I really like the sword package in general. Much like how I like the hunter set. Yeah, I don't know. It pairs really well with pirates. Like 1-drop pirate patches and trade kill thing. All of a sudden, you're looking at like 3 concoctions in hand. So that's kind of appealing. I don't know. I like it. I like this card a lot. I think it's kind of busted. I'm interested in trying like an aggressive concoction deck. I think that's something that could actually be kind of solid.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of Hanar, right? Where we're gonna require a little bit of setup, but like if you get it going, I think it's actually a little bit easier to set up than something like Hanar. It kind of just like can snowball super hard, and I think this is a lot easier to snowball actually than Hanar. So I'm also very excited about it in kind of just either aggressive or arena decks. So I actually think it's a pretty sweet legendary. All right, next up we have Vile Apothecary. 3 mana 2/4 undead minion. At the end of your turn, add a random concoction to your hand. So this kind of seems like a shoe-in for a lot of your like apothecary decks, right? Like in your aggressive deck is like the one that I'm a little bit hesitant about because it is a 3 mana 2/4, but concoction's good.
Concoctions do seem good. And yeah, like this essentially, though, because you're going to be playing it on curve, like this essentially has Battlecry add a concoction to your hand with the possibility of like getting more than one. I think you just assume that it only gets one because opponents are going to remove it. But like that's still probably good enough. So yeah.
It's fine. Like it's the weakest of the concoction cards, I think, by far.
Yeah.
But you need to be playing concoction generators, so
yeah,
I guess you just play it.
All right. Next up, we have Potion Belt. 2 mana spell. Discover 2 concoctions. They will very likely automatically mix unless you have like one already in your hand, and then the first one will mix. But play this on 2. Play your mixed concoction on turn 3. Or you can prep it out with the next card here, which is Ghoulish Alchemist. 2 mana 3/2 undead. Battlecry. Your next concoction costs 0. So you go like prep Potion Belt, make your mixed concoction, play a Ghoulish Alchemist, play the mixed concoction for 0 mana, get a huge tempo swing, draw some cards. Seems like these 2 cards seem very, very strong in your concoction deck.
Yeah. They kind of has the potential to pair with like graveyards and stuff as well. I think Potion Belt and the one minion that we haven't talked about are probably the best ways the deck has to generate concoctions. In particular, Potion Belt seems quite good just for being able to select the potions that you need. Kind of, you're basically sort of brewing a Kazakus potion when you do this with the Potion Belt, which is pretty neat. And being able to do that in a deck that isn't necessarily running no duplicates is pretty nice as well.
And yeah, I don't know, prep. like prep and Alchemist with the Potion Belt is like a very, very strong turn 2. 3 cards, so it probably doesn't happen that often, but man, it's a lot of tempo when it pops off.
Do it turn 1 with the coin, baby. It's so easy. All right, and then the last little piece here is Concoctor. 1 mana, 1/2 battle cry. Add a random concoction to your hand. It does kind of seem like you want to be doing a little bit of Shadow Step shenanigans, and Concoctor works really, really nicely with that. And 1 mana, add a concoction in your hand seems pretty good.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, like I said, this and Potion Builder are the cards that are best generating the concoctions.
All right, how are we feeling about concoctions in general? I think generally pretty excited about them. We think we're pretty cool.
Pretty cool. Seem strong. I don't know if strong enough to like make an entire archetype out of, but like potentially supports existing archetypes or just like fills out archetypes that were maybe close before.
Yeah, strong, cool. Don't know if it'll land in wild deck. Like much like the like Demon Hunter stuff. Like very much looking forward to trying this. I do think like the early game Pyro package can kind of help what's the word? Supplant? Whatever. So, just help support like what we got going on here. But yeah. Don't know if it's gonna be enough because its power level is so crazy right now. Like it's always hard to evaluate stuff coming in when, wild is what it is.
Yeah. It's gonna be hard to like compare it up to something like Miracle Rogue, one of the best decks in the format, but I do think like on its own, it's an exciting, fun new thing that seems like it'll be decent enough to kind of stand on its own, even if it doesn't end up being like a super powerful tiered deck, which I think is fine. All right, let's talk about some Shaman. I know the last time we talked about Shaman last week, we said that they really needed some powerful cards to make up for the kind of crap that they had been given so far. We got the last 3 cards, and unfortunately, does not seem like they got good cards.
Oof.
Yeah. So poor Shaman players in shambles. Overlord Drakuru, 3 mana, 6/8, Rush Wind Fury. After this attacks and kills a minion, resurrect it on your side. Seems fine if you can cheat it out in like a big Shaman deck, but then like you're what are you hitting that you're summoning that you're like super excited about? It also seems worse than like Neptulon to cheat out. It seems like it's going to go in that big Shaman list, and it's not very exciting, or even probably worth playing in your big Shaman list. The more I think about it.
Yeah, I mean it's like a sort of a walking fountain that's already been cut for quite a while. It doesn't heal you up, but the deck doesn't really need healing. It also doesn't really need to like generate small minions either. So, yeah.
Yeah, this ain't excited me very much, sadly.
All right, let's talk about another big Shaman card, which is weird.
Oh,
I don't understand the big Shaman support. I feel like Blight Blood Berserker, 8 mana, 3/8 undead, Taunt, Lifesteal, Reborn, Death Rattle, deal 3 damage to a random enemy. It's a lot of keywords on a card. It's basically 5 mana, 3/8. It reminds me a lot of what's the card that Big Priest used to play? Obsidian Statue, but in Shaman. It's a lot of healing. Again, why are we considering this over something like Neptulon and Scrapyard Colossus is kind of like ultimately the question. And spoiler alert, I don't think you are.
Well, the thing is, well, Big Shaman is not the same. Like, all big decks are not equal. Where, like, Big Shaman needs to be the aggressor a lot of the time in Reno matchups. Like, this needs to be putting on pressure things. That's why, like, Neptulon was so huge for that deck. Compared to something like Big Priest, which has always had a bit more room to kind of sit back with its great healing and defensive resources and things like that, and value. Yeah, Big Shaman's much more about just cheating out one big minion. So, defensive card like this ain't really even suiting the archetype that much.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like, the one place that I would want to run this is not a serious deck, but it's just like a heavy grinder control Shaman type thing with like Storm Guardians and these to just like overwhelm your opponents over time. But that's not going to be a good deck.
I mean, yeah, like it's very good off like N'Zoth.
Yeah,
like it's
exactly.
a big juiced up Cartoon defender. So
Yeah, you run, probably this instead of the Cartoon Defenders or in addition to, and then like Shudderwalk to repeat the N'Zoth. But like, it's still not good. It gives you it also gives you stuff to hit off of Prescience, but like again, it's still not good.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of not good, let's talk about maybe the worst Shaman card, which is saying something.
Bloody hell.
Given some of these bad cards that we've seen, let's talk about From the Other Side. 10 mana shadow spell. Summon a copy of each minion in your hand. They attack random enemy minions, then die. You just spent 10 mana on this spell. Why do they die? I don't understand. And they only hit random enemy this card. I don't know what silver lining you could potentially have, but I would like to hear the copium.
Yeah, sure. They hit face every time if you include Mayor Noggenfogger.
There you go. That's a silver lining we needed. Thank you, Roffle. Appreciate it.
So you play Lorthamar first, double up all your stats, then rip this with a Noggenfogger in hand, and everything bashes face.
There we go. That's the silver lining I needed. I do appreciate you. This also sounds like Shaman deck number 1 on day 1. And then it never gets pulled off, and then, yeah.
Yeah, Mark is going to lose his mind trying to do this. Like, sorry in advance, but
it's not going to be you.
I'm sure he'll get there eventually. Like, he's got much more patience than I do for that type of thing. Yeah, eventually it'll happen.
Dude, this card's so bad. I don't understand.
Like, even like what I think it wants to be is like a removal spell, and even in that capacity, it's very bad.
10 mana.
Yeah,
Removal spell.
because it's a 10 mana removal spell is why it's very bad, and it doesn't even like guarantee clear the board. Like, I guess you want to be running it with some death rattles or maybe some reborn minions.
Where are they?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's the Blight Blood Berserker is the dream hit, but like still it's a 10 mana card.
Yeah, this is worse than Flark's Boomzooka, and I think that's saying
What
something.
happened? What happened to Shaman this set? Like, Rogue and Hunter and Demon Hunter got this cool shit, and then it's just like, where did it all go wrong?
The thing about Shaman is the thing that I've been saying a lot of times this card review is that Death Rattle is not Battlecry, and most of the cards that they got are Death Rattles that are just so slow and like so fragile.
Yeah. At least we still have Flurgle Talks. They can't take that away from us.
Oh, they
please
can.
Take it away. Please take it away.
But I don't think they will.
Somebody please take it away. All right, let's move into Warlock here. So we talked a lot about the discard Warlock support that we had already gotten. And the last time we talked about Amorphous Slime, we were talking about we want this big undead minion, kind of ideally, for this 5 mana Possessed Lackey. And we got one with the legendary, and that is Darkon Drathier. 8 mana, 6/6 undead with lifesteal. At the end of your turn, deal 6 damage to the enemy hero. So basically, it's a stat stick that at the end of your turn, deal 6, heal 6. And then I guess the idea is you're cheating it into play, and kind of like resurrecting it with certain effects, and kind of draining your opponent out of the game. And that's kind of like the gameplay pattern with this card.
Yeah. I don't necessarily think it's a great gameplay pattern for our format, and nor do I think it's a great card. Because if you're paying 8 mana for this in Wild, healing 6 is nice. It doesn't apply a meaningful amount of pressure. So you're just healing for 6, but like I don't think Warlock is hurting for healing.
Yeah.
I kind of like it. Like, I think it's a huge healing swing, so you know, I never want to underestimate lifesteal, especially like lifesteal that can get cheated out potentially. And yeah, it does put on like face pressure and over the top in a deck that otherwise is going to be acting as the control. So I actually really like this. Especially Flesh Behemoth in the neutral pool. What does that card do again? It's
the 9 mana 4/8 Death Rattle, summon the undead minion out of your deck, or draw it.
Yeah, draw another undemon, summon a copy of it, things like that. Like, I don't know, I kind of like this. I think it's decent.
Yeah, I guess to evaluate it, I mean, let's talk about some of the support pieces here. So the idea is you play Amorphous Slime, you discard the Drathier, okay, and then you either kill it or you use the new card, Shallow Grave. And we'll come back to this one because I think it has a little bit more impact than what I'm just going to say here. But you play Shallow Grave, which says 2 mana, trigger a friendly minion's death rattle, and then destroy it. So then you get 2 of these 6/6s that'll deal 12, heal 12. And then if they kill one of them, then you play a new card, Infantry Reanimator, 6 mana, 4/4, Battlecry, resurrect a friendly undead, give it Reborn. So then you resurrect it again, make it a little bit stickier with Reborn, and continuously deal the damage. I believe that is the play pattern that they're kind of going for here. The issue is it really banks on drawing the Drathier. And I don't know how consistent that is, even though we are in Warlock with busted ass Hero Power. But that seems to be the play pattern. Does that change opinions on this card?
I don't know. Like it's probably too slow, but it's kind of like an alternative to Cube Warlock, basically. Is what we're looking at. Instead of doing big demons, we're doing big undead. I don't know. Some of the payoffs are pretty good, but maybe this is like better to look at this in more of a demon package. But like Amorphous Slime, right, is basically just like pre-nerf possessed lackey. Is that too slow? Probably. But I don't know. I kind of like it, and I look forward to exploring some of this stuff.
It requires you to have the undead minion in your hand and then discard it. So then if it gets devolved or something, then you lose the big undead minion too. Like, it's so much worse than Possessed Lackey, but I do get where you're going at, but it just seems very slow and very mediocre. So we talked about Drathier, we talked about Infantry Reanimator. I kind of want to circle back to Shallow Grave, because you talked about Cube Block. Shallow Grave seems strong kind of in a whole variety of potential archetypes, including Cube Block. 2 mana, trigger a friendly minion's death rattle, and then destroy it. So, I mean, we've seen a little bit of a resurgence of Cube Block from the Chinese server, kind of making its way into the EU and America server. Do you think that this kind of fits its way into something like Cube Block, and does it kind of like increase the power level of what we've been seeing from the deck? I guess is my question to y'all.
I personally haven't seen any Cube Block, so I don't know what they're looking like right now, but so what are you hitting this on, a cube or a
it's like cube or void caller, right? Or kind of like the two big things. Or I guess even like your big demons, right? Like you pull the 5/7 taunt and you get 2/5. Like, it doesn't seem great, but
no. I feel like it's a little bit like situational in a way that Plague of Flames is not, where Plague of Flames can give you a similar board swing, but for 1 mana, and like is also good with your 1 mana minions. Whereas this, I don't know, is more expensive and more situational, and like you start running out of board space at a certain point. And with a Void Caller in particular, you need like 2 demons in hand to care about it.
All right, the return of Bird Warlock with Albatross. We just do this. We just expired, or like I don't know. We just have infinite. Oh wait, expired's actually like a lot. Expired. You guys want to do the infinite Gul'dan thing again?
Dude, you know I'm always down for infinite value. We talked about that priest card.
Yeah. Infinite value is great in the current wild.
Definitely.
They can't seal all of your Gul'dans with Theatar, right?
No, of course not. I mean, it is like so broken
can.
with Cube. Like this card's so broken with Cube. It's a lot of mana. It's a lot of mana. And so I'm trying to struggle. I mean, can you ever try and build like an aggressive egg deck? What about that? Thoughts?
We're talking about eggs again.
Damn it! It happened.
Oh, the rule. All right. 2 cards left here. Twisted Tether, 4 mana shadow spell, destroy a minion, give its stats to a friendly undead in your hand. I barely want to pay 2 mana with Arson Accusation. Like, I'm not super excited about 4 mana Assassinate, even though I guess it's Righteous Defense, right? It is what it kind of should be compared to, but it only buffs an undead minion.
Probably not good enough. Probably not.
Yeah, because I don't actually think you want to be running undead minions.
Yeah, it's kind of a theme of this whole expansion, huh?
Yeah. All right. Last but not least, we have Devourer of Souls. 1 mana, 1/3 undead. After a friendly minion dies, gain its death rattle. Seems like a super sweet line of text. How do we abuse it? I guess is the question, right? It is 1 mana, so it seems like fairly easy to combo with stuff, like just fit it in the mana curve when you're killing off stuff. But
There's
yeah.
kind of some funky things you can do with mine Warlock. Can be a lot of damage there. Like you give a whole bunch of wicked imps the mine death rattle and they die off and then yada yada and then you kill this off. Other than that, I don't know. Again, what if we just look at the birds, guys? What if we just shuffle nothing but birds into the opponent's deck?
Hitchcock would be proud.
Corb's been bullied by Arena Priest one too many times right before the recording of this podcast. I think that's
That
what just
must be
happened.
what's going on.
All right. So those are the Warlock cards. Some weird stuff, I think, but some potential, I think, to go alongside the discard Warlock package that we saw earlier. And then we move into Warrior. Some weird cards for Warrior. We were lamenting the fact that they got some kind of crap last week. So let's see if they get saved this time. Let's start with the legendary, the second one, which is Thora Balor. I believe I butchered that name, but we're going to get with it. 4-mana 4/4 elemental with Rush. Death Rattle, go dormant. Cast a fire spell to revive the name of this legendary card. But it can only be revived 2 times. For some reason, there is a limitation because Warrior is known for its plethora of powerful fire spells. On the surface, though, it doesn't seem terrible. Like, it's a 4-mana 4/4 with Rush that comes back, and it's not like a super, super big commitment to bring it back compared to stuff that we've seen before, where you have to, like, draw the 5-cost card, or you have to cast 4 spells to get the shares it back, and then it has immediate impact. So, like, it's got that going for it. But fire spells.
Right. The cost of bringing it back is that you added fire spells to your deck.
Yeah.
Like there are a few that you just kind of are fine with running. Like some, a couple new ones are okay. The like Forged in Flame is one that like you might look at as a slower control warrior, which is probably fine for this card, but there's not enough fire spells to like build a fire warrior, I don't think.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Well, I mean, it's also like a control warrior kind of card, and there aren't enough cards to build control warrior somehow.
Still.
Yeah, that's true.
Hey, maybe this new Risky Skipper will help. We've got Sun Fury Champion, 1-mana 1/3. After you cast a fire spell, deal 1 damage to all minions.
Roffle, Can you just repeat exactly what you just said for the last card?
Yeah, no, the cost of Sun Fury Champion is that you have to add fire spells to your deck on purpose. Also, like you just have a Risky Skipper, just play Risky Skipper. You can draw it off of your Ankar.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about a fire spell though that might actually be worth running. Sunfire Smithing, 4-mana fire spell. Equip a 4/2 sword. Give a random minion in your hand +4/+2. So get a Death Bite. Give your deckhand +4 attack. Like it seems okay in like a face warrior. Face warrior hasn't really existed since like Questline Warrior got nerfed. So like it's really hard to tell how powerful this is going to be. But it's like it's a more busted Blessing of Kings, right? Like by far. And Blessing of Kings stop playing Paladin, given obviously different synergies. It's a lot of damage, right? It is a lot of damage, so it has to be something worth considering. Like, ignore the fire tag because that's irrelevant, but...
Yeah, I think it's just a lot of damage on a weapon.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say, like, it hasn't been a thing since dinosaurs roamed the earth. Like, it's been so long since, like, an aggro warrior like this has been good. I don't know, it's really strong. Like, it didn't get very much else, like, that kind of archetype. But this card by itself, like you said, Death Spite plus stats, like, I don't know. It's like 12 damage for 4 mana. It's like almost a swordfish.
Yeah, almost. Like, yeah, with the deckhand or with some other chargers, like this could be a reason to move away from the questline in Pirate Warrior. Just go back to smacking people in the face. Gets your Dread Corsair down for free. maybe even somewhat reasonable in like Enrage Warrior, which is the best warrior deck right now. Like it they already have the infused weapon, which kind of interferes with this in terms of like your curve. But like giving your anime some extra stats, not the worst thing in the world, but like you kind of want it in play as early as possible with that deck is what I'm finding more and more.
And
So
the idea of Dread Corsair being a 0 mana, what is that, 7/5? On the same turn that you play the weapon is actually like, ooh, that's pretty intriguing.
Now you're actually just like role playing rogue at that point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Roffle said it might intrigue you to move away from questline warrior. I think the questline intrigues me to move away from questline warrior because the questline is so bad.
right. No, that's
Yeah.
that's
I
that's
just want
also
to make sure I got that in. Yeah.
yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
I do think it's worth considering because it is a lot of damage. It is 4 mana though is the issue. You just ignore the fire part on this because that's kind of completely irrelevant. You're looking at it for the damage. All right, Light of the Phoenix, 4 mana fire spell. Draw 2 cards. Cost 1 less for each damage friendly character. Is this Battle Rage for Enraged Warrior? That's like actually not terrible. Is this the savior of Enraged Warrior?
I wouldn't call it the savior, but it's probably a decent support piece. The problem I see with it is kind of relies on you having a board, which means you're winning, which means you want to be like buffing up that board with the weapon. But theoretically, like, I mean, it's kind of like a what's the rogue weapon card draw?
Cutting class?
Yeah, it's basically it's like a cutting class for that deck, right? Which cutting class has been pretty good at times. So yeah, you probably run it. Probably makes the deck slightly better. I don't think it's like the saving grace, but like 0 to 2 mana draw 2 is still pretty strong. It counts your hero as well, like a battle rage, so like you don't necessarily have to have 4 minions on board to get it. And it just kind of fits in with what the deck is already trying to do while giving you some refill. So pretty decent cycle, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's better than Battle Rage in that deck. Like you don't need to draw infinite cards if you're like Battle Rage has the high upside, but like card draw has diminishing returns. You know, like the difference between 4 and 5 cards. Like it doesn't really matter. like you'd rather I think like you'd rather spend 1 mana to draw 2 than 2 mana to draw 3, basically. And that's the difference between like this and Battle Rage.
And honestly, for a tempo deck like that, you'd also rather spend 0 mana to draw 2 than like 2 mana to draw infinity, because you still have to, like, again, follow up. You still have to spend the mana on the cards that you draw, and like if your goal is to, because that deck is lacking mana cheat, like having a full hand isn't necessarily how you win that game, because you still have to wait those turns till you have the requisite mana to play all the cards that are in your hand. So like not having to spend mana on the draw portion of it is a really big deal.
Yeah. All right. So it seems pretty good in Enraged Warrior. And then the last card we have for Warrior is another potential tool for Enraged Warrior. And that is Blazing Power. 2 mana fire spell. Give a minion +1/+1. Repeat for each damaged friendly character. So like comparisons are being made to stuff like Rampage that some decks are playing. Where Rampage is just straight up 2 mana +3/+3. Again, kind of like the whole Battle Rage versus Light of the Phoenix debate. This has a lot higher upside, but it also has a lot lower downside than something like Rampage. And so kind of that's the evaluation that needs to be made. Corb, I know you had some like strong opinions about this card, especially the comparison to something like Rampage. So if you want to go and take it away.
Yeah, I mean, I just think Rampage is better. Like that's the crux of it comes down to. Like I think Battle Rage, Rampage, is much better in the early game. Like that's what it basically comes down to, is that Rampage is almost strictly going to be better on turns 2, 3, and potentially 4. But it has much higher. But this card has much higher upside, right? Much like Battle Rage does. But I think that the amount of times that you have like 3 or 4 minions kind of like on board and damaged are very low. Especially like after like having multiple minions and having 2 mana spare just isn't really that likely. So there aren't even that many times I think it's actually better than Battle Rage. So, better than Rampage. My God, I just cannot get a handle on these warrior cards. So yeah, I already don't like Rampage in the deck. Like, I think minions are super important to just be able to throw out there, get damaged, and like you want that, to keep fueling stuff. And buff spells aren't particularly good. And so I actually just think this card is like super overrated. I've seen a lot of people like hype it up like crazy, and I just don't see it. Like, I just don't think it's gonna make it.
Yeah, and on a lot of minions, like a Crab Rider, like even a Shield of Honor is just better than both of them, and that's not seen play either. Like, the Rampage is better on probably like exactly a Skipper or a Anime Golem or Anime Extractor, but like most other minions, the minions you want to be attacking with would rather just have the Divine Shield and attack for 1 mana from like a Shield of Honor, and that's not seen play. And then like you buff the minions with the weapon and with the in hand. You don't need extra weapon buff. So like yeah, I'm with you on that. I just don't see it. Like even as a combo piece, like Inner Rage into Battle Rage is so easy to, or not Inner Rage into Rampage. You got me saying
You're
it wrong.
doing it.
Yeah, exactly. So even in a combo thing, like you're less reliant on having a lot of minions, which if you're comboing, you're not going to have a lot of minions because you're fixating on like a singular minion. So like I don't see a world where this is reliably better than Battle Rage or Shield of Honor in nearly any context. I said Battle Rage again, didn't I?
Yeah,
Rampage.
you did. I didn't want to say it, but yeah.
Rampage or Shield of Honor. Where the stats matter, I think you pointed out, the important aspect is the stats matter a lot more early if you're not comboing, and Blazing Power won't be playable on turn 2. Like, whereas Rampage, you could theoretically go a 1-drop coin, location, or even, 1-drop into Inner Rage, Rampage, and start getting those stats immediately. Whereas Blazing Power, it's just yet another card that makes you even more reliant on risky Skipper. So the highs will be higher, potentially. I'm not even necessarily certain that will be the case, but like it's going to be dead in a lot of situations, or just like giving +2/+2, which feels pretty bad.
Yeah. In order to not say the names of any cards and screw it up like you guys have, I'm going to keep it short and sweet and just say that consensus is this card is not very good. I know, I agree. I've seen a lot of people hyping this up, and I'm just like, it's Rampage. God, I took the risk. But yeah, I think Light of the Phoenix is like the card that you're excited for if you're in a Rage Warrior fan, and not this one. And honestly, I wonder if you're even like considering the 4-mana card, like the buff spell in the Rage Warrior. It is really expensive, but it's a lot of damage. We talked about that, but yeah. With that conversation out of the way, we've made it 203 cards. That's 70 cards more than we normally do. That's 4 marathon episodes, but we did it. We got through all 203 cards of this new set that's coming out. It's important to say we're not gonna do any of our top 5 stuff or anything like that. We're gonna save that all for next week, the week before the expansion. But I do kind of just want to generally ask you, what are the vibes that you're getting about this new set? How are you feeling about some of the new cards and like the new mechanics and things like that?
I think a few classes got some really, really cool new stuff, and then a few other classes just feel like they're kind of left stranded, and and maybe it's just my personal preference in terms of play pattern, but don't feel like they got cards this expansion. So it seems a little bit of feast or famine for most of the classes, and I'm also a little bit disappointed in the neutrals in the set, but I think that's maybe something that we should get used to, just with like there being 11 classes now. That leaves less room for neutrals. Overall, I'm very excited for Death Knight and some of the other fun stuff in quite a few other classes. I think the set will be relatively powerful, probably more so than people are expecting, because that always tends to be a safe bet, especially for the wild format. And I'm excited to play it.
Yeah, it's like you gotta catch yourself, right? Because I'm about to be like, I don't really see, and then it's like, no, it's always better than you think.
Yeah.
There are a few like standout classes that I really like. Damn it, I'm gonna say it. I don't necessarily see these cards making a huge impact in Wild, but I would like to be pleasantly surprised. Specifically, like I like the Hunter set a lot. I like the concoctions that we have in Rogue. I think a few other packages. Like Paladin, Disco Warlock. Like I think that these are the real big standouts, particularly Paladin Warlock. Um, but overall, the set is leans fairly aggressive, I think. Um, with a couple dead-ish classes, and like Roffle said, the neutrals aren't amazing, but I'm sure there'll be some hidden gems, or a couple excellent cards, perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll kind of agree with both of you guys. Like, I am excited for Death Knight. I think it's going to be sweet. I am a little bit disappointed. Like, it does seem, before we actually play with things, that like Undead seems like it's going to kind of fall flat on its face in Wild. It just seems extremely way too slow, and the card quality seems really bad. I am hoping to be proven wrong when it comes to that, but that's kind of just the vibe that I'm getting from a lot of the Undead cards. And then it also really sucks when I'm seeing kind of multiple classes get this like introduction to a brand new thing, right? Like Warrior to Fire Spell, Shaman to Death Rattle, Hunter with Arcane stuff. Like, just doesn't seem like it has any existing support in Wild, so it's really hard to see those cards being super impactful. Again, obviously, I have been proven wrong in the past, and I probably will be eating these words in a couple of weeks, but that's kind of just the vibe that I'm getting. But yeah, there's also a lot of like super standout cards. We'll talk about those next week. But yeah, super excited for the new set. Comes out December 6th. I think we're allowed to say that all three of us will be participating in Wild Theory Crafting on December 1st. And so I think Roffle's going to be doing it over on YouTube. And I think Corbett and I will be doing it over on Twitch if you guys are interested in checking that out. Checking out us playing with some of the new cards and stuff like that. And yeah, guys, fourth one down. We're done. No more marathon episodes for at least a couple of months, I hope. So I appreciate you guys sticking it out with me. Hope you guys, are looking forward to the new expansion as much as I am. And let the people know where they can find you guys and your content leading up to the new set.
Yeah, you can find me on both Twitch and YouTube at Roffle. Still unconfirmed whether I'll be doing the theory crafting on YouTube, but it is a possibility.
And you can always find me on twitch.tv/Corbett or Corbettgames on Twitter and YouTube.
Yeah, you guys can find me at Get Me Up on all these platforms. Appreciate all of you guys listening through all the card review episodes. Of course, let us know down in the comments whether you agreed or disagreed on our takes on some of these cards and packages. Let us know what you're excited to try out. Thanks for listening all the way to the end, and we will see you guys again next week. Later.